Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wine.com Experiences. I'm Gwendolyn Osborne, and today we are tasting 3 delicious wines from Portugal. So you may often think of port when you think of Portugal, but the dry wines of this region are absolutely delicious and so well worth discovering if you have not already. So we are very excited to taste and talk about them today. If you purchase the trio of wines ahead of time from Wine.com, fantastic. Please go ahead, get them open, put them in some glassware so you're all ready to taste along with us. If you don't have the wines, of course, they're still available on Wine.com, and this tasting will live on our Wine.com YouTube channel, which if you have not subscribed already, I encourage you to do so. That way you can keep up with our upcoming tastings as they're happening and revisit the ones we have already done. The 3 wines that we are tasting today in order are the Herdade do Esporao Reserva White, the Prats and Symington Prazo de Roriz, and the Silk and Spice Red Blend. So let us welcome our guests who will guide us through tasting and talking about these wines from Herdade do Esporao. We have owner João Roquette, from Prats and Symington, partner Rupert Symington, and from Silk and Spice, winemaker Antonio Braga. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening, Gwendolyn. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you. Nice to have me.
Thank you so much for being here, staying up past your bedtimes to join us in tasting and talking about these wines. So I want to start off talking a little bit about Portugal, because so many people they hear Portugal, they think of port, the fortified wine, and many don't know that this is an incredibly diverse wine country that produces top quality dry wines, both red and white. And while the country has been making wines for centuries and has so much tradition, you know, it's also experiencing so much innovation also, especially the past several decades. So I'd love to hear from each of you, what has been so exciting for you in Portuguese wine, especially the dry wine side, over these past few decades. And João, let's start with you.
I would say that we're going on a very nice cycle in Portugal, where the work that we done in the last years as an industry and companies, all the education, all the investment, all the research is going in the right direction, and we can now see the results. I think also that we're going on a path to discover in a more detailed way our wine regions, the different wine regions, and the diversity we have in Portugal. And I think that the identity of Portugal as a wine country and the regions and the producers, we made great development in the last decade. And it's good to see more and more people knowing our wines and appreciating our wines, because we do them with all our hearts and enthusiasm. So it's very good to see that we're going in a good direction.
Indeed, I agree with that. And Rupert, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm from an old port family, but I'm a convert. We've managed to respect the indigenous varietals that we've been taking for granted for years, and we're concentrating on planting real Portuguese grapes that don't exist anywhere else. And I think that gives us a point of differentiation that is so important. You know, it would be so easy just to put in Chardonnay and Cabernet, and actually Cabernet wouldn't survive in our climate, but it would be easy to kind of just go down the mass-produced route. But we've stuck with our guns, and we're trying to interpret the land, through our grape varietals, and it's really exciting. We're still learning as each year that goes by. We're learning more about our terroir.
Yeah, and like you said, as terroir is also starting to change, or at least temperatures. So kind of following along with that as it goes, also something to always evolving. Always evolving. Antonio, because you're a younger, in comparison, kind of a younger wine here, but what has been kind of exciting to you in the industry?
I completely agree with João and Rupert with their perspective. I'm quite happy to be part of this younger generation and taking advantage of all the good work that has been made before, and the way that the things were preserved, and nowadays we can have our own native grape varieties to show to the world. I think we are in the spotlight. We belong to the old world, but we were for several years a well-kept secret, maybe too much well-kept for what we believe. So now that we are in the spotlight, we must take advantage of this position, show the world what we're doing, what we preserved as grape varieties, and that's it. Take advantage of the moment and then show what we are. So I'm really excited with the moment.
Good, and there's a lot to come. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Portuguese wines as well, and as somebody who kind of has been in the wine world for my friends and neighbors, whenever they're kind of stuck in a rut, these are often the wines I introduce them to kind of help them expand. And it's always exciting to get the wow, because it's this wonderful quality and complexity coming from this country. So let's taste some wine. We will be starting with the white wine. So João, we're going to get into the Herdade do Esporao Reserva White.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite white wines. I just have to tell you, I recommend this to people all the time. I've loved this for several vintages now. So, but before we jump in and talk about the grape varieties and the place where the grapes are coming, tell us a little bit about just the winery and its history and kind of how it's evolved into kind of these more modern times.
Okay, so we're located in the heart of the Alentejo region, which is pretty much 25 to 30% of the total area in Portugal. So it's a pretty big geography. We have 8 sub-regions in this region. We are in the heart of one of them called Reguengos de Monsaraz. It's a very extreme, I would say, climate in terms of a big amplitude in temperatures, ranging from negative temperatures in the winter to plus 40 Celsius degrees in the summer. So it's a continental also location where we are. So Herdade do Esporao has its boundaries dating from the 13th century, and it's 1,700 hectares of land that we started to plant in 1972. As of this moment, we planted around 450 hectares in this property. We also have 100 hectares of an olive grove. We have 120 hectares lake to support and have the water to be able to make agriculture in such a dry, extreme climate. We have 3 wineries there, one for our top reds, one for our regular reds, and one for the white wines. We have planted around 40 different grape varieties in these 450 hectares with the most well-adapted grape varieties in this region. We also have a grape variety collection we call an amplographic collection, where we have 188 different grape varieties from Portugal. And we use this to basically study how they behave in this climate changing scenario where we are, which new wines can we look at when we look at the future and study this. And it's good to see we're getting some results already and planting new vineyards with this experiment that we've been doing. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I was just going to, your path towards sustainability too has been a big push and part of who you are the past couple decades too. Yes.
Yes. We in 2006 we started, looking at our vineyard and our wines and seeing how can we, continue to develop and improve quality and know more about where we are and also protect ourselves, and being a family company, protect the next generation and the capacity to continue to make the wines that we love. So we decided to start producing and certifying our vineyards in organic production. So this took us 12 years to do. And as of now, 100% of our properties in Alentejo and in Douro are certified organic, which is something that we're very proud of. And we think that already showing results in terms of, water management, the resilience of the different vineyards to extreme climate, and the capacity to make good wines in difficult situations. So it's something that we think it's definitely part of who we are, and also it's something that different that we did, because for such a big vineyard and production, it was quite an endeavor to do, and a difficult thing to do.
But worth it. So glad that's the path. And then this wine is a blend of native grape varieties grown in Alentejo or Alentejo? I've heard both.
Alentejo.
Alentejo. Okay.
Alentejo.
Learning, always learning. So tell us a little bit about just kind of the soils, the climate. We mentioned that the climate can be very extreme, continental. Tell us a little bit about the soils and how they work, and these grape varieties, and what they are, and what the blend is. Okay, so
it's a blend of traditional Alentejo grape varieties, mainly Roupeiro, Antão Vaz, and Arinto. So the Roupeiro brings this the aromatic profile that we see in this wine, which is I would say white fruits, some citrus, some grapefruits, which brings a little of bitterness also. Sometimes some lemon also. And some sweetness, some honey maybe. It's a completely dry wines, but there's some honey that you can develop.
Honeysuckle. We always like the honeysuckle, which is the floral version of honey. It's like the dry version of honey.
Exactly. And I think it's I think it's a good balance between the complexity of a blended wine, coming from one single state. So it's Herdade Esporao has also this diversity in terms of soils, because we have two important geological soil fences that happen here and give a good diversity that we've been exploring and knowing better as time goes. But also has the structure, the freshness structure to have a slight barrel age, so 30% of the blend.
I'm just going to pause you there so that just everybody, if you're tasting with us, let's start tasting it. So because you're giving us, I'm like, I need to start tasting it while you're sharing all these. So
right,
continue on, because I know it does have a little bit of the barrel. So tell us a little bit about that choice.
Yeah. So as we got this this richness with this generosity, I think in this wine, it has enough body and structure to handle barrel aging in a good way, which I think it does, and improve. We only get around 30% of the lot of our blend on barrels during six months. Then we blend with the rest of the wine that is not in the barrels. And I think this, finishes up the wine, gives it a balanced blend and a bit more complexity. I would say there's sometimes some spice notes, very slight spice notes that I also think are interesting and make the wine richer, and also in terms of gastronomy, also help to make connection to different things.
And speaking of both that style and gastronomy, but a lot of folks who aren't kind of familiar with Portuguese wine. So if you're trying to talk to a consumer about why they would really enjoy this wine, how would you describe this style? Would you compare it to anything? How would you describe it to them to let them try something where that they can't pronounce.
I know I'm not going to go directly to your question, but I would say
That's fine.
first and foremost, this is a classic from Alentejo,
Okay.
and it marks a new way of doing wine in the Alentejo, and it's a classic. So if you want a wine from Alentejo, this will be the right one. There's others, of course.
That's fair.
I would recommend this one.
That.
But if I would have to say a more well-known region, I would say that maybe in the ballpark of a white Burgundy, but with the increased magic of having of being a blend, of having more grape varieties, and coming, of course, from a climate which is different, a bit different. But I mean, if you know and like white Burgundies, you'll probably enjoy this wine.
I love white Burgundy, so maybe I love this wine. So, and what about that food? You were talking about gastronomy, because it has texture, it has acidity. What are some of your best food pairings for this? Or favorite?
Yeah, it's quite. I know this is a cliche, but it's a quite flexible wine to drink. I would say. I think of fish. I would say fish that have rich in fats, or are cooked, who are in the oven, who have more things than just a fish. It will handle that very well because of the complexity it has. It will handle rich food also. I would say also for example curries, shrimp curries or white meat curries. It will do very well. And also cheese, Portuguese cheese. We have excellent cheeses in Portugal, by the way. So medium and even high intensity cheese, it goes very well.
Beautiful. So before we move on to the red wines, I do want to just touch on your label art. Just so if people, sometimes people recognize a label and they come back to it, but yours changes every year with a different artist, correct?
Exactly. So we do this since the 1985. We're now in our first vintage, and the idea is that for us, each vintage, it's a wine. It's something to remember and has specific identity and characteristics. And we thought it would be interesting also to have a work of art in the label. So we have this amazing collection today of most of the contemporary Portuguese painters and artists. So when you look for our wines, and if you see a different label, it's the same wine from the same vineyard, and you will of course be the same thing. So it's just a different label.
It's just a different vintage, different label. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
So we're going to the first red that we'll be tasting. Is the Prats and Symington, Prazo de Roriz. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So Rupert, as you mentioned, your family has been in this business for quite some time, over 130 years, mainly as port producers. So when did you start producing dry wines?
Well, we had a light bulb moment in 1999, and we felt that we'd been making red wines in the Douro for years, but really as an afterthought from the port process. And we thought, here's an opportunity to make really good wine from these amazing grapes. And we recognized vintage port was amongst the best, the greatest wines in the world for 150, 200 years. Until the 1950s, vintage port was actually in the same league as first growth Bordeaux in terms of price. I don't know where we went wrong or where they went right, but we're not quite there at the moment. But anyway, we felt that we had the terroir and the grapes to produce great wine. So we had actually my father had this great idea of calling a friend called Bruno Pratz, a great Bordeaux winemaker, former owner of Cos d'Estournel, and asking him to come and do some experiments. So in 1999, we created a company. He put in 100 euros and I put in 100 euros. We created a company together. My share was in the name of the Symington family, not personally. But then we went on and we tried making wines out of the great sort of varietals of the Douro, like Touriga Franca, Touriga Nacional. And in 2000, we hit the jackpot. In our second year, we made a wine that really seemed to kind of, it was 50% Touriga Franca, 50% Touriga Nacional. And we launched a brand, we had a lot of luck. It's gone on to be, one of the wines of Portugal that are known outside Portugal, which is difficult. Portugal has had an image problem. I remember going into stores in Texas and Louisiana, and they'd have the Portuguese wines in the Spanish section, and you'd say, well, hang on, get an atlas. Portugal is a very proud country that actually had a lot of history, a lot before the US was even thought of. But anyway, we went on and we developed a wine called Crisea. And in 2009, we had the opportunity to buy this magnificent estate. It was an estate that my family were familiar with. It was owned by a distant cousin of mine called João Vanzeler. And we had the opportunity. This estate changes hands probably once every century. And anyway, we're making wine at this incredible place today. And the wine we have in front of us today is a sort of, if you like, it explores the varietals that don't go into the senior blend. We reserve the Touriga Franca and the Touriga Nacional for Crisea. This wine is about 50% Touriga Nacional and Touriga Franca, but it also has some of the lesser known varietals of the Douro. So it has some of the more interesting, what I call Rhone-like qualities of the Douro. For those of your viewers who aren't familiar with the Douro is one of the driest places in the world where people grow grapes without irrigation. So what happens is we grow vines that produce very few grapes with incredible concentration. And one of the issues of making dry wine in the Douro is managing the alcohol. We have very sweet grapes, as you'd expect for port. So we have to make sure that we don't end up with wines with 14, 15% alcohol. So we do have to manage that quite carefully. And this is a lovely example of a wine that's been made from quite big, fleshy, very aromatic and very sort of flavorful grapes, but made in a style that's more elegant. You can make wines in the Douro and end up with something that would be like, Zinfandel from, one of those. I won't mention a name, but some of those Zinfandels.
It was generic Central Coast. It's fine.
They're about as near to port as wine can get. But we try not to make port. We're trying to make wine with elegance and finesse.
So I have with the grapes. So these are similar. These are the same grape varieties that are going into port. The vineyards where they're grown, are they grown in the same vineyards that you're growing the port grapes, or you had mentioned buying another estate? Are they separate? Are they separate places?
They're exactly the same vineyards, and we simply have to select. Typically, we pick for the dry wines maybe a week earlier. You can make port out of raisins, but you really you have to be very careful for great red wines. You can't pick too ripe. So we have a huge issue in the Douro with heat, with lack of water. So it's a constant. We lose vines to dehydration, to drought every year. And even when we have vines that are healthy, we lose our crop to excessive heat. So, it is it's not an exact science making top red wines in the Douro, but I'm so excited. I 20 years ago, I started a business with a French partner, and today we're drinking this great wine today. That's really, it's testament to the fact that we can actually have great wines from the Douro alongside port.
Yeah, and I mean the way you described it, I was like, So why is Douro have so much potential for great wines? Because you're like, it's hot, our vines are dying, we don't have enough water, these are all going wrong, but it has potential that creates incredible wines. So
it's the concentration. I mean, if you deny a vine water, it will put all its oomph into a very few bunches, and it's managing those bunches. And like Joan, we have been we're very attentive to what's happening. You know, last year was the absolute low point in viticulture in the Douro. We lost something like 30% of our production in our estates, dried up 2 weeks before the harvest in a heat wave. And, you know, it's not, hopefully not going to happen this year, but if that starts happening every year, you know, we've got a problem. So we are looking at varietals that are more resistant, like Touriga Franca. Even Touriga Franca in 2020 dried up, which is perplexing. It's being planted around the world now as one of the most drought-resistant grapes. But last year it was just so hot for so long, we couldn't, you know, even the Touriga Franca couldn't produce, you know, what it should do. Anyway, so we're very attentive. You know, we've become a B corporation. You know, we're very sort of attentive. We need to work together. It's not something we can do on our own as an industry to, you know, to really work out ways of making wine. Otherwise, you know, we're all going to be sitting here in 20 years' time, and the wine industry worldwide is going to be a tenth of the size of what it is today, and it's going to.
I'll be drinking vodka. Please don't make me do
exactly.
That. So let's taste through this wine, or as we're tasting, kind of talk a little bit through kind of what we're getting that kind of reflects what we just talked about with the vine.
So the way I like to sort of put Prazo in the picture, if you like the world of wine, I put this, you know, the closest thing you could expect is Northern Rhone. It's got, we have the same sort of vine biology. The vines have to go very deep to find water. They're feeding on the mineral layers deep down, not on the organic material. So you're getting a lot of, you know, minerality in the wine, a lot of intensity, but the difference between the Rhone and the Douro is obviously we've got a lot more heat. You're getting, you know, I get a lot of sort of bell pepper, spice. You know, it's a wine with enormous power. It's been deliberately made. We do bleed off some of the juice, so it's not too alcoholic. This is about 13.5% alcohol by volume. If we picked Barocca fully ripe, it would be at 16%. You know, would you be undrinkable? So it's all about managing this you know, the excess of sugar, the excess of alcohol. But I find Prazo, it's a real expression of the wilderness of the Douro. It's got some of that garrigue, as they say in France, that wild thyme, that spice, that, you know, herbal kind of nature. You know, it really smells like a sort of, you know, walking through a field in the Douro in late summer, where you're getting these sort of, you know, dried herb flavors,
which is similar to the Rhone. That's exactly what happens in the Rhone. They all get dried out, and you walk through.
Exactly, and I love this. I mean, I don't know. We've got onto the food pairing question.
Yes, get to the food now. I mean, it's making me hungry, so let's talk.
I have this most brilliant American invention, which is called a Weber rotisserie attachment. So you put this kettle on top of your Weber, and you can cook a rotisserie chicken. And I tell you, it's the best accompaniment for a Douro Red, you know. And I'm not being paid by Weber for this plug, by the way. So
no, I didn't even know that existed. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Good rotisserie
it's fabulous. Chicken. But you know, so a rotisserie chicken, or the other thing I love, and a great Portuguese thing is grilled octopus. I mean, octopus sounds like a you know, something that cries out for But if you have a good, polvo à lagareiro in Portugal, which is like an octopus baked with onions, and it's an amazing accompaniment for big reds from Portugal. So for an American audience, Portuguese food is yet to arrive, and when it comes, boy, you're going to be blown away.
We are so excited about one day traveling. I have a feeling everybody's going to start marking down Portugal for the next trip. Obviously not in the summer or winter after y'all have talked about those climate issues. So spring and fall, yeah, we'll be there. This is delicious wine. I love this wine. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Cheers.
Cheers. And so the next wine is the Silk & Spice. So Antonio, I kind of love the story behind the name of Silk & Spice. Can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind that?
Yeah, of course. We are, as you know, just a small country that we are in between our neighbors that we love, Spain and the ocean. And somehow after the Middle Age in the 15th centuries, we had a huge amount of will to go out and to discover new things. So without GPS or mobile phones or smartphones, we put ourselves in small boats and we went away for the ocean, for the unknown. And we discovered the sea way, the maritime way to the Orient, and we established commercial routes between the Orient and the Western world, and we start bringing to the Western world a lot of spices and a lot of different kind of commercial items to this Western world. And the name comes from that beautiful era in Portugal, where we were courageous and adventurous, and I think we still are, to bring all those things to the world that we know today. So there are a lot of things that we know today in the Western world that came in that era. Funny things also, when you travel to the other side of the world, once you get, for instance, to Japan, and they say arigato is the same of obrigado. Obrigado is in Portuguese, thank you, and arigato is the Japanese way of translating our word to thank. So it's funny because by the time, and of course we are very small as a country and we don't have enough population to spread throughout the world, so we were much more in the market side of the travel, and not as much in colonizing the countries, because we were small, so we cannot colonize all the countries because we didn't have enough people to achieve that. So we were trading with them and bringing those spices, those silks, those things to the Western world, and that's how the idea came. We made a lot of the label itself. It's an old map from that time. We made a lot of maps in that time. We were the first to get to some places, so we documented everything, and we just take advantage of this good coincidence between those profiles of silks and spices, and frame that into a wine, into a red blend.
Into a red blend. And so I want to talk also about, kind of you're on the newer side, especially talking to our other guests, that you're on kind of that innovative, working with the traditions of just Portugal as a wine producing country, but also kind of a very exploratory sense. Mm-hmm. So for this red blend, what are the grape varieties you're using? Because I know it's combining the traditional, but also a little bit of international, right?
Yes, and picking up something that we spoke earlier, of course, one of the challenges is how to frame or how to reframe our tradition, our old world into this modern way. We must open the door in some way, and we must frame things in a way that the market and the consumer understands them. So in this specific wine, and we as a company, we have a lot of different styles and a lot of different regions and different value propositions for different consumers. But in this red blend, what we achieved here. Basically, this is not a wine from a DOC. This is a wine from all over Portugal. So blending here and achieving the profile is what we want more than expressing a place or a specific vineyard. So we are thinking about a style, about a profile, and we change in between vintages where we are sourcing our grapes and wines in order to get to that profile. And basically, the two core varieties, I would say, it's Touriga Nacional, the one that Rupert already spoke, from the Douro and from the Dão, very important in those two regions, and nowadays all over Portugal and even international. So Touriga Nacional may be our most proeminent red grape variety. So Touriga Nacional and Baga from the center of Portugal, from Bairrada. It's a niche region, a smaller region next to the Atlantic line in the center of Portugal, more acidic, more tannin. So Touriga Nacional and Baga, and then we complement with Alicante Boucher, which is a grape variety that came from France, but establishes very well in the terroir of Alentejo, for instance. Alicante Boucher also in this wine, and then a little bit of Syrah from a region next to Lisbon, where Syrah happens in this 2019 edition, because next year it can be a little bit different.
Yeah,
but the style will be the same.
So you're going for that consistent style, which is great. Then people, once they know they really enjoy your wine, is that vintage after vintage, they can expect the same style at a terrific value too. Is that the wine support? I mean, they're such great quality, but the value you get also is just tremendously delightful for all of us. So, you know, as let's taste through the wine and maybe kind of speak to kind of that style that you are aiming for, seeking.
So, as I told you before, the idea here is to present in a modern way some of our traditional varieties, some of our terroir. It's I would say a traditional red blend. You will find, if you want to have some touch points with other regions, you will find some red blends from California, from Italy, from the south of Italy, from, if you are thinking about France, maybe you are more towards Bordeaux than Burgundy. So we are in fact in a warm style of red wine. So you will find ripeness. You will find some jammy, some confit, some red berry fruit, but you will find it framed in a modern way. So you'll find some sweetness of vanilla, some notes of coconut, some easiness on the tasting, and some expression on the aromatics. So it's not, I would not say it's a subtle wine. It's a bold wine. It interacts with you right when you smell it, and then in the mouthfeel, we want the tannins to be integrated, to be soft, to be round, to be food friendly, but in the other hand, also could be sipped while you're cooking, while you're making your pasta, and you can have a glass of wine just before dinner. And an important thing with these kind of wines, play with temperatures. So if it's summer, maybe you want to chill it a little bit more. If it's winter, you want it to have it a little bit warmer. So play with temperatures and with glasses. Have it in large glasses, so for the wine to expand. It's a ripe, bold red wine. So we want expansion, we want big glasses, and we want good temperatures. So service is important here.
Yeah, and it's and then you describes it on how you describe it too, is this is an easy drinking wine, but I like the way you're describing it, just play around with the glassware, with the temperature, with the food, because this is a wine you could serve with about a different meal probably every night and be happy. So, you know, that kind of, speaking of which, so super diversity of food, but what, do you have any favorites, or is it just for everybody to have it every night?
I really love it with everything that has tomato sauce, like lasagna, bolognese, chili, even a pepperoni pizza. So everything that has an element of tomato, of the acidity of tomato, really pairs with this wine. There's a pairing between this boldness, this jam fruit with the acidity of the tomato. That's incredible. I like the ingredient of tomato, and I think it's a wonderful pairing.
That's great. Yeah, that does. Yeah, this is making me want to have a big meal right now with all three of these wines because they're all so diverse and delicious. So I have a question to give to all three of you, but Antonio, since you're with me now, I'm going to start with you. But I want to think about the Portuguese wine industry going forward, in the future. Kind of how do you plan to continue to grow and expand, and where do you see the industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think we have, as I was saying at the beginning, I think we have to take advantage of being in the spotlight, maybe for the second time in our life, as a country, as a wine producing country. The big challenge is to keep up our way of being, our style, even if we have to modernize a little bit the way we frame our wines. And mainly, our bigger challenge is to grow in terms of perceived quality. We must present ourselves as a firstly country in terms of wine producers. That's where I think we belong. We should deliver that. And we should show the world that we are able to be in that first league. So build in terms of quality and position in terms of the first league of the wine producing countries. That's where I think we should be, and that's the main challenge.
Yes, you think that when you go to a wine store, there should be a Portugal separate from Spain. Yes, I get it. Just like Rupert was saying. So Rupert, what are your thoughts on going forward in the future of the industry?
Well, I agree with Antonio. We need identity. I think our biggest challenge is the reputation that we've acquired in the past for inexpensive wine. Portugal went through many years of selling wine, very small portion of its wine went to exports, but it was sold on price and not on quality. And my mission in life is to try and reboot the consumer's perception of Portugal. And it's not, just cheap vinho verde. It is there's a whole world out there of amazing opportunities in the Alentejo, in the Down, in the Douro, in vinho verde, of really world-class wines that are not being given the credibility. It takes years to build a Chianti Classico designation, and Portugal has, we've got to probably wait another 200 years before we're accepted in the way that Côte du Rhône is accepted. We're just not trusted. And I think, but we can move much quicker. It's not going to take 200 years. It's going to take probably 5 years, but we have to work very hard to get there. I think the proof is in the pudding. The wines that are coming out of Portugal today are world class at all levels. At the commercial supermarket level, we're over delivering in terms of quality. I think at the super premium level, we've got bottlings coming out of Portugal today, which could, really match the best of Bordeaux. We've only got the upside to look for. I mean, it's extraordinary what's happening in Portugal and what's happened. In 20 years, we have taken our industry from Fiat to Ferrari. I mean, there's no other wine region in the world that has reinvented itself so quickly as Portugal in the last 20 years.
Good. That's exciting. And I'm glad everybody thinks there's just more to come. And so, João, what about your thoughts on that? What's next?
Yeah, I fully agree with what has been said. I think we're we're still to to value our wines in the way that that deserve in terms of what we're delivering. I would maybe add that I think that the world in the last 5 to 10 years is also discovering Portugal as a country, not only as a wine region. Wines, of course, is a very important thing about our culture. We like our wine very much. We're great wine drinkers, will always been. But I think, all the people who have been coming to Portugal for traveling, discovering the country, discovering the food, as Rupert was saying, maybe people who came because they like the wines and this was like their gates to Portugal, because Portugal is a safe place, because, all the reasons that people are coming. It's giving a better perspective of whoever is, for example, in the States, what is Portugal about? I think you guys know a lot about Italy, a lot about France and Spain as a culture and of course wine producing regions. I think one of the important things is this cycle where people are starting to get related to Portugal and discovering Portugal and actually staying here. There's a lot of people coming and living in Portugal, and that is opening the doors also to kind of reflect and export our culture to the world. So I think we all will also benefit from that. Climate change, of course, is a challenge that we all have to deal with. I think that we've been preparing for that, as we are, in a vulnerable geography, as Rupert said. But I think it's on our minds and our conscience, and I see a lot of people doing work on this and preparing the best we can to continue to keep up with the challenges that we have now and ahead.
No. Well, I am a huge Portuguese wine advocate on the dry wines. I recommend it to people. I buy it myself. So hopefully that will start to spread, especially throughout the US market, and you can reach that goal in 5 years. So, but I will continue to drink them even if other people aren't. But I thank you all so much for your time, for being here. For those of you who joined us to taste these wines as well, hopefully you are some good Portuguese wine converts as well. Also, the wine's still available on Wine.com, as well as a whole amazing list of other dry wines from Portugal and port, if that is also what you enjoy. You kind of get a whole diverse array from this beautiful country. So looking forward to visiting sometime soon, but thank you all so much for being here, staying up, telling your stories and sharing your wines, and just being so passionate about what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. So stay well.
Thank you, Gwendolyn.
Yes,
You've been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's both a science and a form of high art. It's made from the combination of grapes, sunlight, rain, soil, and time. It's raised up in the moments that matter. It's wine. And we are Wine.com. We have the largest wine selection in the world, online sommeliers with free advice, and now our powerful new app puts the entire world of wine in your hands. Wine.com. Seriously passionate about wine. Download our free app today.